So we kind of course, left off. We didn't quite add enough edge loops to our fingers and knuckles yet. So remember, that is one thing we could actually take advantage of right now. Of course, we can hit 2 for edge mode. I've already got tweak on, but remember, Q is your quick key to go to your selection tool. Remember, that Q toggles you through your types, right? And there are 4 types: rectangle, circle, lasso, and tweak. And remember, tweak's kind of cool for just letting you kind of move edges or faces just by left-click dragging, right? It's kind of a fast way to make adjustments to shape. But I do need some more loop cuts here, just like we had on our toes, to give us more knuckles, right? So, of course, Alt-C for loop cut. Remember, it is right here, particularly if you're in modeling workspace, right? Modeling workspace. Remember, that gives you some of these major tools right here. Not every tool, but some of your big ones. Remember, loop cut's right there, right? Loop cut's right there. Alt-C is the quick key for that, right? So I can, of course, go in here and put 2 knuckles in, so I can just, remember, you can left-click drag. You don't have to just left-click. That puts it right in the middle, right? But left-click drag will let you move it. And then, of course, I can hit R for scale if I wanted to, right? Remember, it's right here. That was our quiz from the other day, right? What is shortcut for scale tool? R. Remember, though, there are buttons right here, right? Scale tool. You have the handles, of course. You can scale just along one axis or even 2, the little squares. But remember, the white circles are your uniform scale, right? It scales all 3 at the same time. So the other ones are more technically stretching, whereas the white circles are scaling, right? They're actually changing the whole scale instead of just along 1 or 2 axes. Middle mouse button does that also. So if I just hold down middle mouse button drag, it does a nice quick uniform scale for us. W for move, because I have a whole edge loop, right? And then, of course, I can use middle mouse button drag for view move. And you see how that kind of just lets us get a nice little bit of extra taper for that finger. Maybe just move that edge. And then we can just make any minor adjustments we want. But you see that just gives us that extra little bit, right? So, of course, I can do Alt-C for loop cut again. Remember, if you left-click drag, it'll let you slide the edge loop you're adding. Just a regular left click, and you see how I'm kind of putting it in this way, right? We don't want to put it that way. We're putting it in this direction. So our cursor should be over this edge, right? Remember, the loop cut tool always works based on the perpendicular edge, right? The edge that meets it at a right angle. And it's always looking for the opposite edges. This tool works really well on quads. A mesh made of triangles and n-gons, you're going to have a hard time selecting and adding loop cuts to. It's one of the many reasons why we like quads. But remember, just loop cut, regular loop cut without dragging, just left click, puts it right in the middle. So once you get used to that, it's actually really nice. It's a really excellent workflow for it. So it's 2 loop cuts, kind of for both knuckles, right? Look at your fingers. You kind of have 2 knuckles along the length of the finger, right? The other knuckle's actually part of your hand. It's kind of this guy up here. Remember, R for scale. Middle mouse button, right? If you hold down middle mouse button drag, it's your uniform scale. W for move, right? Remember, they're all right here, though. Middle mouse button drag for view move. If you want to view rotate, right? E for rotate. Remember, it's a button right here, though. Middle mouse button drag does view rotate. And, of course, you can just move single edges, right? Or even switch to Q for your tweak tool. And now you see we have kind of extra geometry to make the fingers look a little more natural. I'm going to add 1 more loop for the thumb, because our thumb really only has kind of the 1 knuckle. The rest of it kind of is in the palm. So we'll go Alt-C for loop cut. Put an edge loop right there. Maybe a bit of R for scale. Middle mouse button drag. W for move. Hold down middle mouse button drag, right? And that just gives you that kind of nice little extra shape, an extra proper number of digits for the hand, right? So those are great to kind of have there for what you need. I'm going to save this as another one. So I always like having some models to go back to that are the step before, right? So that gives us a hand that's even better, right? We can see we've got more of the proper shape that we want for the fingers, right? But now I want to show you the tricks that I use to optimize this hand, right? So this is where we're going to get into the spin tool. We're going to take a few edge loops out also. So which edge loops do we take out, right? Well, if I double left click, remember, double left click, right? You double click with your left mouse button on an edge, right? 2 for edge mode. Double left click selects an edge loop, right? Remember, 2 for edge mode. Double left click, so you just double click with your left mouse button, selects an edge loop. Now you notice I'm selecting the edge loop that goes between these 3 stars, right? That goes between these 3 stars. That's the one I want, right? It should be a total of 4 edges. It goes between this 3 star here and this 3 star here, kind of on the bottom of the hand. So remember, we extruded our fingers off of the top row of 4 quads, not the bottom row, right? To see how there's still the bottom row of 4 quads? Now, I want to delete this edge loop. How do we delete stuff? Well, if you hit delete on your keyboard, right? So if you hit delete on your keyboard, remember the delete key brings up your delete menu, right? So your delete key brings up the delete menu. And you'll notice there's a couple of options here. If you ever want to get rid of faces, delete faces. But if you want to get rid of an edge loop, right, dissolve edges. If you want to get rid of an edge loop properly, you have to dissolve the edges. If you just hit delete, right, and then just delete edges, it'll leave the vertices behind. You will notice that if you hit delete on your keyboard, you might not see these default quick keys. I added those because I use delete and control delete, a good amount. So remember, right click on a tool and you could assign shortcut or change shortcut. Right? So I'll go to change shortcut here and I'm just going to press control delete. And now I've added those quick keys. So remember, you can start adding your own quick keys. I find shift delete and control delete be pretty good quick keys for that. So dissolve edges, and you see how it takes that edge loop out and doesn't leave the vertices behind, right? By dissolving edges, the vertices go with the edges, so you have quads. Now I also want to take out this little mini edge loop here, right? See how it's 2 edges in between this 3 star and this 3 star, kind of on the kind of side bump for the kind of pinky area. And I want to delete that, right? So delete on your keyboard. Dissolve edges. In this case, like I said, I've assigned a quick key to it. Dissolve. Now that leaves us with 2 triangles kind of touching, kind of making like an hourglass that's skewed a little bit. So what I do is I select the 2 edges that go from kind of the wrist to the pinky, right? See how they kind of go through the triangles like this? And then I hit delete. Dissolve edges. And now you'll see that not only are several of those stars gone, but you see how that side of the hand is now more smoother? So that part's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. We're just kind of deleting a handful of kind of edge loops that we wanted to delete. Now comes the trickier part. We are left with a triangle here, right? And a triangle here. Now we're going to reteach this. We're going to re-lecture on it, right? You'll have lab time. But sometimes you just need to get the lecture out there so you have it, right? So it's available for you. So how do we take these triangles and move them around? Well, I want to spin these. By spinning them, I mean you can actually change the configuration. So I'm going to select this edge right here, right? I'm going to select this edge right here. The reason I want to select that edge is because I want to move this. I want to spin it so that it moves from the pinky, right, to the ring finger area, and then eventually to the middle finger area, right? So So that's why I select this edge on this side, because I'm selecting it on the side I want to move it, right? I want to move it from here to eventually here. So that's why I select that edge. So how do I spin it? Well, we're in 2 for edge mode. We've selected an edge. Remember, if you right-click, that brings up your edge context menu. And you will see that there is a tool called Rotate Edge, right? Rotate Edge. And you see it's set to rotate clockwise. This is how you'll rotate that edge. Right-click. So the edge context menu comes up, Rotate Edge. And you'll see now the triangle is from here to here now. So I'm going to undo a couple steps. Remember, Control-Z undoes. So this does not create new polygons. Right? It does not create new vertices. It creates nothing new. What it does do is reorganize this, right? It basically takes this already existing edge and it tries to connect it to different vertices that already exist that these 2 polygons share. So it's more proper to call this a tool for reconfiguring. Nothing new is created. You're just trying to tell this edge to be connected to different vertices that already exist between these 2 polygons. So no new polygons created. You'll still end up with a quad and a triangle. No new edges created. No new vertices are created. You're effectively just trying to connect this edge to different vertices that already exist between these shared polygons. I know it's a little tricky, but once you get it, it's quite cool. Now, you also want to take a mental snapshot, right? This triangle looks like it's basically pointing up towards the body, right? The wrist and the arm. See how there's a single vertex here, kind of at the wrist, and then you have your 2 vertices down here, kind of more in the hand. You want to have the same exact configuration, but right here, right? You want to move this from the pinky finger to where the ring finger would have been. So like I said, right-click, brings up your edge context menu, rotate edges. Remember, you can assign a quickie to this, right? Right-click, assign shortcut. I like having V for it, so I assign V to it. And you see how it rotates it? No new edges created. No new vertices are created. It just connected this edge to this vertex and this one. So if I do it one more time, now it's connected to that one. And you see how this is actually the configuration we want, right? It's that single vertex up at the wrist with 2 down here kind of middle of the hand. But you'll see this triangle now is on the ring finger instead of the pinky. Now if I keep spinning this, it will go back to the start eventually, right? So this will circle back because it's not creating anything new. So you just have to kind of take that mental snapshot of what it looks like and then spin it until you get that same thing on the next finger over. Usually the edge will be on the opposite side. So now I can switch back to this edge because you always want to select the edge in the direction you want to move it or spin it, right? So I want to spin it so this triangle is no longer on the ring finger, but on the middle finger, right? Or where the middle finger would be anyways. So take that mental snapshot, single vertex at the wrist, 2 vertices kind of at the middle of the hand. And I want this same configuration here. So remember, right-click, brings up your edge context menu because we're in edge mode to select edges. And it's the Rotate Edge tool, right? So I'll rotate it. That's not what we want. Rotate it again. Ah, that's what we want. Now it's over here. But you'll notice there's still a triangle here as well. Now what's really cool about this one is this one's actually going to let us create a more natural flow. This spin tool exists to actually change edge loop flow, right? So that you can actually have this edge be configured differently to adjust which faces flow into which other faces. So this tool really exists to change edge loop direction somewhat. I just happen to know you can also move triangles to different places with it as well. So in this case, I select the edge on this triangle, right? Because I want to move it to the side of the index finger and then to the top of the index finger, right? So once again, we take that snapshot, Single vertex should be kind of here, right? So we want the same configuration, you know, these two here and this one here, so it's properly on the side of the index finger. Right click, rotate edge, CW, clockwise, right? That's not it. There we go, right? You see how now the single one's here, those two are here. But you'll also notice this flow now actually connects more naturally here, right? You see how this inner thumb flows into the index finger with all quads? If I went to loop cut, you see how I could actually add a loop cut through there easily now. So this is what's really cool about this tool, is it lets us move these triangles to meet, but also it allows me to get a better edge loop flow through here. So I switch to edge, right, because I want to select this edge on this side because I still want to move it to the top of the index finger. And I'll spin it. Right click, right, rotate edge. That's not it. Rotate edge, and now you'll see that this triangle is here, right? It's kind of meeting up. In fact, you'll notice by doing that twice for both of these, you see how they meet now in that hourglass that we had on the kind of bottom pinky area? So we intentionally move those triangles to meet to create this hourglass, because we know if we select two edges between the triangles, going from wrist to kind of fingers, we can hit delete, dissolve edges, and I'll take those edge loops out. Now I do want to make some shape adjustments here, right, because these kind of are bunched up a little bit. The one last thing I like to do to kind of get better adjustment for this is I've kind of got this 5-star here and this 3-star here. So I want to kind of do the same thing, right? This is all about deleting those edge loops initially and interspersing that spin tool, that rotate edge, right? It's called rotate edge in here. You'll often hear it called spin in other packages, right? This is a common tool. Now the edge I want to select here is in between the 3-star and the 5-star on the thumb, right? So there's a 5-star here, a 3-star here. So I'm going to right click, rotate edge. That's actually what I want, right? Because I don't want to create a 6-star here, and I want to create what looks like two triangles that could kind of make a quad right there. If I were to spin again, you see how it's kind of creating that 6-star here? And if I was to spin again, it goes back to the start. So there's really only 3 possible configurations that edge could have. And one of them is a start. So that means there's only 2 other options. And we want the one that doesn't have a 6-star right here, right? See how that vertex has 6 edges? So we want that one. That then gives us the ability to select this edge here. Either one's fine. Delete. Dissolve edges. And now, you see how we've just got a better flow up through here? And we can just kind of adjust this a little bit. If we want, we can rotate that, right? E for rotate to get a little bit better bend. And back to tweak tool, maybe grab that vertex. You see this just gives us kind of a nicer, more optimized flow through here. So we end up actually having a pretty efficient polygonal structure here, right? Very few stars, only ones that are really necessary. We've got better edge loop flow through here. It's just a better structured hand. And obviously adjustments could still keep being made, but that is kind of what we want to do for that hand, right? To get us to kind of a better place with it. A more optimized place. Like I said, we just keep tweaking to get the shapes better and move over more where we want them to be. There we go. All right. So that'd be a great place to stop for that video.